Fun fact, prohibition never works. You just end up creating a large, wealthy, violent, ungovernable black market.
That sounds like a fucking interesting video, right? But what it really sounds like to me is what a lot of people want to hear. And I've been seeing a lot of videos like this, so I'll let the video play and get to its entire point. But here I am making a video on this, coming back to YouTube once again, because honestly, these videos have been pissing me off. And let me just let it play before I start deconstructing the whole fucking thing.
Prohibition created the bootleggers, drug prohibition created the cartels, and the Spanish system of Casa de Contratación created the perfect environment for the Pirates of the Caribbean to thrive.
Now, I do want to talk about, the pirates and all that, but we need to go to these earlier examples because there's a lot wrong with this. And his blanket statement of saying that prohibition has never worked, like ever, is really fucking stupid. And I think it's kind of, I don't think this guy really is like a super political guy, but it kind of ends up perpetuating this whole neoliberal worldview that like drugs are good, guys. You need to just let everyone do drugs and do whatever they want. And there's more videos about this that I might get into depending on how long I decide to rant about this shit. But there is one major example of prohibition working that I'm sure that this guy and many other students across the world, millions of children, have learned about. And that's opium in China. You wanna know why? Because when the Chinese banned opium, apparently it was so effective that the British decided to declare war on China multiple times in order to make sure that their fucking drug trade kept going. And that is why I think that just making this blatant statement, blanket statement, I'm being a fucking retard right now, by saying that, prohibition never works, it does work. But the reason why it ends up typically either failing or like not working as well as it should is because of political willpower. You see, now the reason why places like China and Japan don't really have a drug problem as compared to the US, yeah, there's going to be at least someone who slips through the cracks because that's just the nature of being human. People will make mistakes. Even if you try to enforce it as much as possible, one person will slip through. But there's a complete difference between that and what happens in, say, China and Japan, where they're very harsh on drugs, and what happens in the United States, where people have these drug overdoses in the streets, and you have certain cities looking like fucking drug-den trash dumps, looking like fucking giant trap houses, okay? And the thing is that it's either political, well, it actually all comes down to political willpower at the end of the day. Because places like the CCP and the Japanese government and the Diet and the LDP and all that, even though the LDP is going through political instability, they will pretty much crack down on the drug problems that Japan has before it becomes out of control like this. Now, let's look at the examples that he provided. Alcohol prohibition. Well, here's the problem. With the United States, many of the police officers were corrupt. They could have cracked down on it, but many of the police officers were in on it. The problem is that the United States didn't want to fully commit to that, and they didn't want to actually get rid of alcohol. Most of the people banning alcohol were doing it because many of the Christian community wanted to get rid of it, but most Americans don't care. They didn't care back then, and they don't really care now. A lot of Americans kind of do the Christian LARP thing where they pretend to be Christian, but they don't really care for shit about Christian values, so they're not really going to persecute it. Because the thing is that like they weren't really pushing crackdowns on alcohol as much as they really could have. Because here's the thing, the opium wars took place fucking hundreds of years ago, and you might be like, well, prohibition was like 100 years ago. It wasn't really, like, dude, it was like the 1920s. What were they going to do? China could fucking crack down on that shit when they were dealing with this shit in the 1700s. And I fucking missed that. Before you make a billion comments, 1800s. I got the year wrong. My fucking world history knowledge isn't up to full far, but I'm pretty sure it's like 1839 or something. Yeah, the mafia was around in the 1950s, and really, the thing is that in a lot of ways, if you actually look at the history of what was going on back then, the United States government and the mafia were working hand in hand whenever it was convenient to them. So of course the United States didn't really deal with the mafia if they were going to benefit from them. And the same thing goes to his point about drug prohibition. I mean, these are the same people who will be like, oh my god, we need to feel bad for like people who are addicted to crack and shit. And then they'll be like, well, the CIA made drugs and gave it to fucking black people. They gave crack and cocaine, which, it is true. Like, a lot of drugs did come out of the CIA's programs. but then they act like prohibition doesn't work because it just never works, it can't work. Or maybe the people who make the drugs aren't going to want to actually get rid of the drugs that they fucking created. Like, does that not come to mind? If they're making drugs and spreading them throughout these communities, I don't understand how you can have this worldview, a lot of these people do, where they'll make comments like, oh my god, you can't get rid of drugs. Like, man, they sound like fucking addicts in a way. But like, you have this worldview where they're like, oh my god, the CIA made the drugs and then they spread them to all these what did they say, like something underprivileged communities, and then they fucking ruined them. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously the CIA does all this shitty shit, but then it's like, you really think that the CIA fucking were willing to kill fucking Kennedy for, trying to limit their power? You think they were gonna just let the government get rid of the drugs that they worked so hard to spread throughout all of these communities? It's not really just African American communities. Don't try to pretend like there's not like white neighborhoods or they're just like fucking riddled with meth and shit right now. Like, it's really fucking disgusting in a way, because they're aware of the problem, but they don't want to take an objective view of reality, a very obvious view of reality, actually, because these people will preach Occam's razor as well, saying that the most obvious answer is probably the right one. And the most obvious answer to me seems that, like, if the CIA made the drugs, why would they want them gone? So of course, and then here's another thing, is that we're very well aware of the fact that there are people in our government, the US government specifically. I don't know if you're in the middle of fucking, I don't know, Greenland or something, so of course you're not having these problems. Don't come in my comment section being a fucking retard about my comment there. But we are well aware of the fact that there are people in the US government who have connections to cartels, and he brings up the cartels in the video. And we're not, like, everyone's on the same page on that part, that there's corruption in the government. The government has helped the cartels out before. Even companies that like won't sell to like the fucking civilian market, like H&K and F and Herstal, have been giving the cartels guns that they obviously should not fucking have. But it's okay. The prohibition is the reason why the cartels came into power. It's not the fact that the government pretty much completely worked with them in order to spread these drugs around. Like, okay, buddy. And that's this is the thing, I'm just fucking ranting, but like, this shit's like really fucking retarded. And there's like, there's so much shit going on with these like, with the fact that these prohibitions are failing. And it's the main thing is that there's just not enough political willpower to actually do what needs to be done. Okay, because we have this neoliberal worldview where everything is freedom, everyone should be able to do what they want. You have the weirdo libertarians that are like, we need to have AR-15s with bisexuals and whatever the fuck, and it's like, the problem when you have this worldview is that it becomes hypocritical when you need to actually protect your society in any way, shape, or form from anything like this. Because now, if we actually do something like what China or Japan's doing, it's a dictatorship. You can't take away our freedoms. We want our AR-15 weed farms and all this bullshit. And then it's like, oh, with the cartels, like going into Colorado and like kicking people's doors down and begging them for money. Or not really begging, putting them at gunpoint. So I guess they're not really, it's more extortion. They're like, fuck, you can't get them. They're an underprivileged minority group. So if you do anything, it's fucking racist. And it's like, and these are like conservatives sometimes with these opinions too. So it's really funny because it's supposed to be conservatives. Libertarians aren't really conservative. They're treated as conservatives because they're more right than like a lot of like far leftist groups, but they're not really fucking conservative because they don't really have any of these values. And that ties into what I'm saying with political willpower. If these people truly believe in like absolute freedom and all of that, why the fuck would they get rid of this shit? Why the fuck? Well, one, it makes them money, so they're not gonna want to get rid of it financially, and two, politically, it doesn't really make sense. If you follow libertarianism to its natural conclusion, the right doesn't want to get rid of it because, they're not really right-wing, they're mostly just liberal, like slightly more right liberals. And then the left is obviously not going to want to get rid of it because they're pro-drug. They're openly like, well, both of them are pretty much pro-drug. And it makes these people too much money, and this is not like a very accurate representation of, you know, the why the shit isn't really working. It's like, oh my god, man, prohibition just doesn't work. And I think a lot of like liberals, and I fucking butchered that pronunciation, but a lot of like, you know, left-leaning people will take this argument, and a lot of like super pro-democracy people also do this, where they claim that this is the only way the world works. This is the only solution. Our only option is to let everyone do all the drugs they want and not persecute it at all. And they also do the same thing with democracy, which that's a whole other video where they say that democracy is the only government system that works. Everything else is just doomed to fail. Completely ignore the fact that we may go into these other countries and influence them and try to force them to fail, or start a revolution that we backed to take it over. Yeah, no, every other government system just doesn't work. And they do this shit, but it's like, come on, bro, like, let's be real. And I guess, dude, I'm already 10 minutes into this rant. I guess we can watch the rest of the video and see what the fuck he has to say about these pirates.
Casa de Contratación, meaning house trade, was put in place in 1503 and was meant to control trade and commerce between Spain and its New World colonies, but it was highly restrictive. The house trade system mandated that the colonies could not trade with each other, and all trade had to go through Spain and their approved merchants. This made things expensive and scarce, since the Spanish merchants couldn't supply the colonies fast enough, which made people turn to the black market run by pirates and rival European nations. The pirates stole from the Spanish and provided people with the goods they needed, fueling the golden age of piracy. And the Spanish never figured this out. The house trade system was in place until 1790, well past the age of pirates and New World colonies. Check out my full video about Spain and the real-life Pirates of the Caribbean, linked to this short.
Well, this leaves out a lot of like really important parts of information, like the fact that the pirates actually originated from, like, I'm pretty sure it was like French settlers or whatever, being banished to this fucking island. And if the Spanish had just like fucking killed them and not given them basically a chance to keep living, they wouldn't be fucking pirates if they just, you know, fucking slaughtered them all, rather than being like, okay, well, we're just gonna banish them. And it comes down to the same fucking thing, political willpower at the end of the day. The Spanish didn't want to just fucking kill all these people and get rid of them once and for all. They just wanted to push the problem somewhere else, let it deal with itself. And eventually the pirates obviously were going to grow and grow and grow, because, you know, these are people that, like, there's a good chance they may have died if they just went on that island, but what if they don't die? It's the fucking Caribbean. It's not like the island is fucking frozen in the middle of the Arctic and there's no food on it. No, you picked a fucking tropical island where they could obviously fucking figure out how to survive on. So, like, it was more so Spanish incompetence and the fact that they didn't really want to deal with the problem. They weren't going to push on the issue that actually mattered, rather than, you know, oh, prohibition just never fucking works. And I think it's a really foolish idea to say, because obviously Spain did not have the, you know, infrastructure to make this house trade system work, and obviously they didn't have enough, you know, military might to just enforce this like the United States does with every other issue that it wants, like, you know, say people trying to make their own currencies outside of the US system. Well, you know, that prohibition seems to be working really well when they fucking execute Muammar Gaddafi for no fucking reason. But yeah, no, trust me, it's just prohibition that's the problem. But when the United States prohibits you from making your own currency, and, you know, everyone else in the world has to obey, or they get a rebel group that comes out of nowhere and fucking executes them. It's like, dude, most of these Libyans that I talk to don't even know what fucking Muammar Gaddafi did. Or let's say Saddam Hussein, for example. He didn't have fucking weapons of mass destruction, but, you know, he went against it. There's a prohibition against going against Israel because, you know, all of Israel's enemies seem to either get fucked up by them, like Assad, or they get fucking killed by the United States. And at the end of the day, you know, every fucking world leader has to go kiss that Wailing Wall for some reason. But, you know, we don't get to talk about how the prohibition against anti-Semitism is in full effect and clearly working very well when every fucking US president has to go kiss that fucking wall for some reason. And Donald Trump is executing anti-Semitism laws. But no, he's literally Hitler, guys. Trust me, him and Elon Musk are Hitler. But if you say anything bad about the Jews, they will fucking get DHS on your ass and they will deport you even though you're a US citizen. But sure, man. Sure. Prohibition just doesn't fucking work. Everything else is like, you know, we just need to let everyone do drugs. Apparently, we need to let everyone do whatever the fuck they want, and we need to just not actually push on any issues that matter, that actually make our society a better place. We need to just let everyone do drugs, and you know, because that's more important than actually having a city street where I can walk around without getting stabbed by a guy with a heroin needle, and some guy just infecting me with super AIDS because he had a fucking used dirty needle that he stuck in his cock and then decided to stick in my neck because I wanted to go take the train or something in some fucking urbanite city. But yeah, guys, I'm done with this rant. There's more videos like this that I could talk about. If you want me to like talk about more topics or whatever, leave some suggestions down in the comments, because I'm down to do more rant videos. I'm not really trying to like make these huge fucking videos where I cite my sources and everything. I mean, just look up anything I'm fucking saying, you'll find it. But yeah, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.